Welcome to Aviation Stories Uncovered. In this episode, the McDonnell Douglas F-4 Phantom II, the record-breaking interceptor that became the definitive multi-role fighter of the Cold War and still flies with air forces today. When the McDonnell F-4 Phantom II first flew on May 27, 1958, it was designed purely as a fleet defense interceptor for the United States Navy, an aircraft meant to shoot down incoming Soviet bombers before they ever got close to an aircraft carrier. Nobody involved could have predicted it would go on to become one of the most widely used and longest-serving fighter aircraft of the entire jet age, flown eventually by the Navy, the Air Force, the Marine Corps, and 11 foreign nations, a genuinely unusual level of cross-service and international adoption for a single fighter design. Pilots who flew it often described it with a kind of gruff affection, nicknaming it the Rhino or simply the Double Ugly, a nod to its unconventional, almost brutish appearance that belied just how capable it actually was. The Phantom was a large, powerful, two-seat aircraft, crewed by a pilot and a dedicated radar intercept officer, powered by two General Electric J79 turbojet engines that gave it a top speed of Mach 2.23, over 1,470 miles per hour, along with genuinely exceptional rates of climb that could take it from the runway to well over 30,000 feet in barely more than 2 minutes. In its original design, it carried no internal cannon at all, relying entirely on radar-guided and heat-seeking missiles, a decision that reflected the era's growing faith in missile technology over traditional gunnery. More than 5,195 Phantoms were eventually built, making it one of the most widely produced Western jet fighters in history, and in its early years, it set a startling string of world records for speed, altitude, and time to climb, records that stood for years against competition from far more specialized aircraft built with no other purpose than chasing those very records. Its distinctive smoky exhaust trail, a byproduct of its early engines, became so recognizable that experienced observers could often identify an approaching Phantom by its exhaust plume alone, long before the aircraft itself came into clear view. Its official low-altitude speed record, set in 1961, skimming just 125 feet above the ground at over 902 miles per hour, stood for years and highlighted just how much raw power its two engines could deliver, even without relying on altitude to help achieve high speed. At roughly $2.4 million per aircraft in the dollars of the era, it was also considerably more expensive than the fighters it replaced, a cost the Navy and Air Force judged well worth paying given its dramatically greater capability across so many different combat roles. The Phantom's lack of an internal gun proved to be a serious and costly oversight once it entered combat over Vietnam. American doctrine had assumed that future air combat would occur at long range using missiles, but the political and tactical realities of Vietnam frequently forced Phantom pilots into close-range dogfights against smaller, more agile Soviet-built MiG-17s and MiG-21s, exactly the kind of combat the Phantom's missile-only armament was poorly suited for. The problem became severe enough that external gun pods were eventually developed as a stopgap, and later Phantom variants finally incorporated an internal cannon. But the early lesson was expensive, both in aircraft losses and in the realization that dogfighting skills, once considered obsolete, remained absolutely essential. That realization led directly to the founding of the U.S. Navy's Fighter Weapons School, better known by its nickname, Top Gun, established in 1969 specifically to retrain American fighter pilots in the close-range dogfighting tactics that had atrophied in the missile-focused years before Vietnam. But even before Top Gun existed, individual pilots found creative solutions. In January of 1967, Air Force Colonel Robin Olds devised and led a mission called Operation Bolo, in which Phantoms flew the exact flight profiles, altitudes, and even radio call signs normally used by vulnerable, unescorted F-105 bombing formations, deliberately luring North Vietnamese MiG-21 pilots into what they believed was an easy attack on bombers, only to find themselves engaged instead by heavily armed fighters. The ambush accounted for several MiG kills in a single mission and remains studied today as one of the most successful tactical deceptions in the history of air combat. Remarkably, despite the Phantom's origins stretching back to the late 1950s, it remains in active frontline service with several nations even today, including Iran, Turkey, Greece, and South Korea, a testament to the airframe's fundamental adaptability. In the United States, retired Phantoms found an unusual final role. Converted into remotely piloted F-4 drones, they served for years as full-scale aerial targets used to test air-to-air missiles and train fighter pilots against realistic threats, meaning that some Phantoms, built to fight in the skies of the Cold War, ended their operational lives being deliberately shot down in training exercises decades later. One of the Phantom's most dangerous specialized roles emerged directly from the growing threat of Soviet-designed surface-to-air missiles over North Vietnam. Specialized F-4G Wild Weasel cruise flew missions specifically designed to bait enemy missile radar operators into illuminating their aircraft, deliberately provoking a launch so the Phantom crew could trace the radar signal back to its source and destroy the site with specialized anti-radiation missiles, all while a live surface-to-air missile was very possibly already in the air and tracking them. Wild Weasel crews adopted the unofficial motto, "First in, last out," reflecting their job of suppressing enemy air defenses before a strike package arrived and staying behind to keep those defenses suppressed until every other aircraft had safely departed the target area. One of the most statistically dangerous specialized flying jobs of the entire Vietnam War. Beyond the well-known operators, the Phantom found its way into an unusually diverse collection of air forces around the world, including Israel, where locally modified Kurnas Phantoms played a central role in the 1973 Yom Kippur War, Japan, which built many of its own Phantoms under license using domestic manufacturing, and West Germany, Spain, Egypt, and Turkey, among others. Because so many nations flew such similar variants, a genuine international support network of spare parts, upgrade kits, and shared maintenance knowledge grew up around the aircraft over the decades, allowing air forces with limited defense budgets to keep their Phantoms combat relevant through radar and avionics upgrades, decades after the type had been retired from frontline American service entirely. The F-4 Phantom II was originally developed for the U.S. Navy following the cancellation of an earlier joint fighter program, intended specifically to give carrier battle groups a powerful, long-range interceptor capable of engaging Soviet bombers well before they came within striking distance of the fleet. Its raw power, sophisticated radar, and heavy missile armament proved so effective and so adaptable that the U.S. Air Force adopted it as well, an unusual cross-service success at a time when the Navy and Air Force rarely shared airframes, and it went on to become the definitive multi-role fighter bomber of the 1960s and 1970s, a rare case of an aircraft designed for one very specific mission proving versatile enough to dominate an entire era of air combat.